Organizational environmental analysis. The organizational environment is everything it can be affecting continuity, existence, and so on that concern the organization, whether internal in nature or external. Organizations that are able to adapt to environmental changes will survive, whereas organizations will be destroyed if they do not pay attention to developments or changes in the environment around them. Why do we need to analyze the organizational environment? Apart from helping organizations achieve goals, environmental analysis can also help predict the future, recognize threats, develop response strategies, and can increase organizational effectiveness. In the internal, cultural or environmental factors displayed a company that is in the form of values, built by example and shown by the leader with a physical appearance that includes color, placement and shape, as well as building a good image and can also have a good impact on the company. Elements of the organizational environment are divided into two, namely the external environment and the internal environment. 1. The external environment is factors that are outside the organization and can influence the performance and success of the organization. The external environment is also known as the macro environment. The external environment needs to be analyzed to determine the opportunities and threats that the company will face. By understanding the external environment, organizations can adjust their strategies and operations to achieve predetermined goals. The external environment consists of two parts, namely 1. The general environment is an environment that indirectly influences organizational performance. Almost all organizations are influenced by this environment. Although the general environment does not affect the organization directly, but must still be taken into account organizational decision-making. Here are the various types dimensions of the general environment. 1. Economic dimension. The economic dimension is health and vitality, the entirety of the economic system in which the organization operates. If condition economy experience a shock, it will be affected significantly directly to the organization. 2. Technological dimension. This dimension reflects the methods available to converting resources into products or services. Technological changes will affect the way organizations work, change those resources. 3. Socio-cultural dimensions. Socio-cultural dimensions are various dimensions that shape a person's behavior in a social group. This dimension includes attitudes, norms, customs, lifestyle, values, habits, and demographic characteristics of the community in which organization exists. 4. Legal political dimension, namely in the form of government regulations regarding business and relationships common between business and government. Constitution and regulations. Regulations which issued the government can have a big impact on the survival of the organization. 5. International dimension, namely the influence of business, politics and policies of other countries specifically for organizations multinational have a huge impact on the organization. The second part of the external environment is 2. Task environment. Also called environment that has a direct influence on the organization, namely elements outside the organization specifically has a direct effect on organization. The task environment is important because it influences a company's ability to achieve its goals. For example, customers influence a business's revenue generation, while competition determines market share and market prices. Dimensions of the task environment, namely 1. Competitors. Competitors. The existence of competitors competing for resources in consumers, or those offering competing products or services. Organizations will also compete with other organizations in fight over resources. Organizations will also compete with other organizations in fighting over resources. Example: organizations will compete to obtain funds from financial institutions and acquire qualified employees of a university. 2. Customers. Namely individuals or organizations who buy goods or services from an organization. Customers influence organizations directly because of them buy and use goods or services produced by the organization. 3. Suppliers. Namely parties who provide input in the form of resources to organization, which is necessary to run its business. Input can be materials, raw materials, semi-finished materials, employees, financial capital, information, or services. Organization is required. 4. Regulators are public bodies that operate in a complex environment between public authorities, the private sector and end users. Usually it is the government that regulates and influences the policies and practices of an organization. 5. Strategic partners, namely two or more organizations that collaborate jointly, venture or other partnership. The second element of the organizational environment, namely. 2. External environment. The internal environment is the organizational environment within the organization and formally has direct and specific implications for the company. By understanding the internal environment, companies can set policies that exploit strengths and minimize weaknesses. The following are the various dimensions of internal environment. 1. Owners. Shareholders are people who have legal property rights towards the business. Impact and managerial implications of leaders. An owner can be someone who founded and runs a business, small business, partners who jointly own the business, or investors who own shares, shareholder. 2. Board of directors, namely those elected by shareholders and responsible for overseeing the general management of the company, for ensure that the company is run in the best possible way, satisfy shareholder interests. 3. Employees, workers, namely individuals employed by the organization. Employees can form labor unions which currently have bargaining power large enough to influence the organization. Therefore, managers need to foster good relationships with employees or unions. Worker. 4. Physical work environment, namely the physical facilities provided organization to support the organization's operations.